So, do you believe in Jesus?
Believe in Jesus.
I believe he exists. He
You
existed.
do? So you
yeah.
believe he existed?
I believe he existed, but I don't like. There's this
They say
whole
they're not so sure
transfiguration thing where, I believe there was a prophet around that time that had, pretty wild
Superpowers.
Yeah, no. I
Parted
think
the
that
sea,
was
come on.
largely. I think it was largely created by
gotta go.
followers later, but I feel like he had pretty radical tenets of life to love people, and people went, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" And I think he was, arrested, tortured, and assassinated, essentially.
For subversion.
For subversion, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
What about the resurrection?
yeah,
Do
because
you know that was a big deal back then? That being resurrected was like,
that was proof.
yeah, it
That
was
you were a
proof
god.
that
So-
you were God, or proof that you were something.
Now there you go.
And there were a lot of them.
There you go. There's why I think
Every
that.
Mo, Larry, and Curly were getting resurrected back then.
So there are theologians out there that have done exhaustive, I think there was a Russian guy named Fomenko. I could
Did
be
a lot
wrong.
of knocking on doors.
I could be wrong about that, so don't hold me to that. But there are theologians out there that break down the history of Jesus Christ into pre-miraculous, connotation and post, and their different historical perspectives and looks at it. It gets largely confused in our day.
So you believe he existed?
Yeah,
as
I
a-
do.
yeah.
I do. And he certainly wasn't white American Jesus. I think he was he was a Jew. They know that.
He was Jewish.
He was probably dark skinned.
Yeah, Sephardic.
Yeah, Sephardic. So
Sephardic.
certainly not what we've been.
Well, he's not the light hair, like the light brown hair,
Smiling
blue-eyed.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little doe-eyed.
He looked like Santa. That's when my grandmother got her dementia. She would tell the girls that Jesus is bringing her presents, at Christmas time.
She was confused.
She got Jesus and Santa mixed
Well,
up.
sometimes I refer to
God bless her.
modern American ideas around Christianity and who they perceive to be God as Santa God, and it's a bit. I've offended a few people by referring,
No, that's easily
referring to their belief system as Santa God, but I stick by it because one of my problems with and it's a big problem, and a really dangerous problem, is this cognitive dissonance that I don't like to use the word believe, for one thing. I just don't believe much.
Well, it changed.
I think certain things are highly probable, but
the definition of that word changed during the Age of Reason in the 1500s.
Yeah.
Because that word used to mean beloved.
Oh.
It didn't mean that which can be proved by a certain set of scientific experiments that came after this. When
Well,
you said "I
but
believe," it meant I beloved Jesus. It meant your heart belonged to him, and it's kind of hard to explain that.
Yeah.
right.
You can't say it. There's a series of.
Yeah.
So
So it's a tough word.
my problem is so people don't use. I mean, you'll hear people like Neil deGrasse Tyson say, I would prefer that the word believe not be used around issues of science like anthropogenic climate change, because it's not something, we scientists, we don't believe that this has happened. It's the wrong word.
Yeah, it is.
It's really the wrong word.
Hope.
Or hope is one thing. If you want to hope that Jesus is going to take you by the hand when you die and lead you into a beautiful, mansion with nice landscaping or whatever, that's
And a low flow
you can
toilet.
hope all you want, and you can wonder, and you can follow the teachings of somebody and try to and do your best to live intentionally and follow the teachings. live a moral life,
Turn the other cheek.
and well, there's one.
Still radical to this day.
Yeah, like
Still.
perfectly radical among
It was
conservatives.
crazy talk back then.
Yeah. Well, coming out of an eye for an eye, that was a radical.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That was a really radical concept. Not taking revenge, not
Atonal religion.
yeah. But the problem with Christianity, sometimes I refer to them as the desert delusions, but also Islam, is that it requires you to sever critical thought. It requires you to put down
All religions.
specifically the religions that kind of have this what to me is a kindergarten understanding of of a deity, of what may or may not be life after death, resurrection, heaven and hell. Some of these concepts that are
Siskel and Ebert.
they're really like they're lifted out of a picture book for 5-year-olds. They're so simplistic. Some of the attributes that we assign to God, if they were in a human being, would be vile traits like narcissism. You have to worship me and nobody else. You can only use one name for me, or you're going to have your head cut off. You can, I'm jealous. I'm vengeful.
I can't hold my liquor.
If you do use another name and it isn't the name I prefer, well, I'm going to send you into a lake of fire for eternity. I mean, those are that's evil.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
It's also insane.
And it's crazy.
Right.
It's it's just vile. It's horrible.
It's poopy.
It's extremely. Speaking
It's that
of
poop
public
emoji.
bathrooms again, but
Poopy.
but again, my problem is that in order to believe that, you have to cut off your critical mind. You have to put down the one thing really that separates us, and if we're separated at all, like if God has given us something that's extraordinary,
gift.
it's the gift of the rational mind. That I mean, really, and
Evolution,
you put
yeah.
that down in order to worship this God, you're actually blaspheming against the greatest gift given to you by
Totally
that God.
agree.
And I have a problem with that.
Totally agree.
And then once you've done that, you can believe anything, which is how we see 38% of this country not having an objective reality, not being able to look at something that's happening and trust their own senses and trust the work of every scientist at MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Yale,
It's almost
Cal
like a
Poly,
disconnect,
and
right?
yes, and so
Trump
that's why they use the
University.
word
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance.
Right.
You've pulled apart your mind, and you can't. Once you have broken it,
Yep.
in order to follow a kindergarten religion, you've broken it, and it doesn't work for your, it's going against the survival of our species now, and that's a pretty big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially to soothe your mind and answer questions that can't be
Well,
answered.
it's just, yeah. It's
You know,
magic.
it's magic. mentioned this guy Fomenko, Fomenko. He's a part of this new chronology theory, and it's not new actually. It's like in the late 1800s, where he feels like Christ really only existed 1,000 years ago. It was at 2000.
The Mormon guy.
No, Jesus Christ was actually alive in like the 900s and was largely manipulated. It's pretty crazy what Fomenko thinks historically, that it was used to control people. The story of Christ was used to basically do all the bad stuff that ended up happening hundreds of years later.
Well, when you tell people
religious
that
wars.
what's happening to them now and what they're doing now is not right now in their lives,
That's right.
is not the most important thing, because there's this better
Right.
life that's going to happen to you after
Right.
you die.
That's evil.
It makes people who buy that, then it doesn't
give me
matter
money because-
if we're burning the earth or if we're being exploited
Well, they're
and
putting
sent
theology over the origins of life.
Yeah.
down. Well,
And if you do that, I think you can't call yourself a liberal if you put
Or
theology.
preachers that are the brokers for, give me your money and I'll be sure that you get there. I'm sort of
Yeah,
an
isn't
agent
God's
for-
always broke?
so there's that. There's
It's all just horrible crap around
God
us.
he just can't handle money.
Yeah.
You gotta,
That's right.
that's a George
can't-
Carlin.
Is it? Yeah, that's a good
That's
one.
They
a good
always
one.
want money.
Yeah, so this Fomenko guy has this whole crazy theory on it was all concocted to control people, and it's pretty
But I
fascinating.
mean, it's not a crazy
pretty fascinating
theory, and
actually.
I'm not convinced
Yeah.
that Jesus
Well-
wasn't around sometime around 2,000 years ago. But
Right.
but I am able to buy the idea that, for one, painting this picture of an afterlife for people helps you exploit them and send them down into the mines or into the fields and whip them, and you're able to say, be a slave. It's okay.
Or participate in wars,
Or
whatever it is.
or if you die for our cause or whatever
Right.
it is, or you, you're miserable, your children are miserable, and everybody around you is miserable and wretched. But there's this afterlife.
Yeah, that you'll love.
Yeah.
So
And-
just
Right.
And my
Yeah.
favorite thing is when Christians make fun of the Muslims dying and getting virgins, and
Oh, right.
and they like, can you believe they believe that? It's like, well, actually, you're not too far out there, Bell. But it's all monkeys with matches.
Monkeys and matches. That's right. I wonder if Jesus has like anything to do with milk cartons.
So it came up with half gallon cartons of juice that have the or half and half that have the plastic screw top that you
And you
unscrew
have that
it
ring.
and you pull the ring. And I saw something on the internet somewhere that said, and then you pour it. Did you know you were doing it wrong? And I was like, well, what are they talking about? It's because we automatically pour it from the cap side that we just unscrewed directly into the cup. You're supposed to rotate it so that the hole is on the far side and you pour over the middle.
Really?
Yes. And the reason why you do this is because if you take a full quart of whatever liquid you're pouring in, you get air bubbles,
air
and it goes blub, 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 blub. If you
splatters.
do it the back way, it doesn't splatter. And I was like, are you
All these
kidding me
years
with
I've
this?
been doing this.
And I didn't believe it, and I tried it, and it definitely didn't glug, glug, glug as much, definitely. But it still had a little of it, and a part of me was like, kind of thinking fake news here or whatever, internet,
Fake news.
you know,
that's
internet.
I think you just had
You're doing it wrong.
a
shit.
geeky person who understood how that air bubble
The
works.
science works.
And just said this is a better way. It's a little, one of those little.
Try
they call
that, though.
They call them hacks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hacks. I
Yeah.
think that's what
I,
they are.
I've
it was
done.
a-
I've,
I think that's what it
it
was
was a
called.
milk
Yeah.
carton hack.
Hacks.
Yeah,
You
some
don't
of
know.
those-
You've been doing it wrong.
yeah. I love some of that.
Yeah, they're
Every once in a
great.
while, I take a little break at work and I'll watch one of those
Right.
one of those funny hacks, like things you can do with a rubber band or whatever it is. Amazing stuff that people can do with simple little household items that you find in your household junk drawer.
Jesus Christ.
If God has given us something that's extraordinary, it's the gift of the rational mind.